one of the greatest realizations in life comes when you finally accept that no one truly cares about your struggles, your excuses, or even your ambitions as much as you do. At first, this truth feels harsh, almost cruel, but it is the essence of freedom. When you stop expecting the world to validate you, you begin to take responsibility for your own growth. Stoicism teaches us that external opinions, praise or criticism are all beyond our control. What truly matters is how we respond to them. Once you internalize that no one is losing sleep over your failures or celebrating your victories with the same intensity as you stop wasting energy on trying to please or impress others. Instead, you redirect that energy toward mastering yourself. This is the pivot point where your life starts to change. When you realize that people are far too busy dealing with their own battles to focus on yours, you learn to become self-reliant, to build your own discipline, and to derive meaning from within rather than from applause. It is not isolation. It is liberation. Consider how much of our time is wasted worrying about what people might think of us. We hesitate before making a bold decision, not because it is wrong, but because we fear others might laugh. We suppress our real feelings, not because they lack value, but because we worry they won't be accepted. Yet if you step back and look closely, most people are not even thinking about you. They are consumed with their own challenges, desires, and insecurities. This is the reality Stoicism pushes us to see. Once you accept that no one cares, you are freed from this invisible cage of imagined judgment. The irony is, when you finally stop caring about their opinions, you live more authentically, and ironically, people respect you more for it. Life becomes lighter, decisions clearer, and the path straighter. You no longer carry the unnecessary burden of seeking validation. Instead, you carry only the responsibility of living according to reason and virtue. Epictetus, a great Stoic philosopher, taught that the foundation of freedom is recognizing what is and is not within our control. The opinions of others, their praise, or their neglect all fall outside your control. If you depend on them for happiness, you surrender your peace to forces you cannot command. By embracing the truth that no one genuinely cares, you take back that power. You stop begging for recognition, and you stop resenting others for not giving it. Instead, you place your energy where it belongs, on your own character, your daily actions, and the virtues you cultivate. Every morning, you wake up with a simple question: am I living true to my values today? If yes, that is enough. Recognition may come, or it may not, but it ceases to matter. The anchor of your soul is no longer tied to the shifting winds of public opinion. It is grounded in self-respect and discipline. Imagine how much courage you gain once you stop caring about who is watching. You speak with honesty, because flattery no longer tempts you. You work with diligence, not because you want applause, but because excellence itself is your reward. You take risks in pursuing your goals, not because you need people to cheer for you, but because you refuse to live a life of regret. This is where everything changes, when your motivation shifts from external validation to internal conviction. The crowd becomes irrelevant. You could be cheered by thousands or ignored entirely, and your path remains the same. This unshakable stability is what the Stoics called tranquility. It is the calm that comes from living in harmony with your principles rather than in reaction to the noise of the world. Once you internalize this, setbacks lose their sting and success loses its vanity. Life becomes simpler, sharper, and more meaningful. The belief that others care deeply about us is often a hidden source of our suffering. We dress to impress, speak to be liked, and act to be accepted, Yet, if you reflect on your own life, how often do you think about other people beyond a passing moment? You may notice them, judge them briefly, then return to your own concerns. The same is true for them. Realizing this truth dismantles the illusion of constant surveillance that chains so many lives. Once the illusion shatters, a new strength arises, the courage to live honestly. You stop pretending. You stop tailoring your existence to fit expectations that never truly existed. Stoicism shows us that freedom lies not in being admired, but in being authentic. When you accept that no one cares, you give yourself permission to finally live, not as a shadow shaped by opinions, but as a soul guided by wisdom. When you accept that no one cares, you also stop expecting others to rescue you from your struggles. Too often, we delay action because we secretly hope someone will step in, notice our difficulties, and offer help. But waiting for rescue is a trap. It breeds weakness and resentment. Stoicism teaches that the only person you can rely on fully is yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to expect the world to treat him fairly, but to rise above circumstances with virtue. The moment you let go of the illusion that others will prioritize your burdens, you empower yourself to carry them with dignity. This is not about isolation or rejecting help when it comes, but about refusing to depend on it. The more you own your challenges, the more resilient you become, and the less disappointed you are when the world remains indifferent. That independence is where strength begins. Freedom also emerges when you realize that people's opinions do not define you. If no one cares, then their judgment is nothing more than passing noise. We spend so much energy trying to prove ourselves in the eyes of people whose attention is fleeting. They will forget our mistakes faster than we fear, and our triumphs faster than we hope. When you internalize this, you stop performing for the crowd and start performing for your conscience. The Stoics would ask, does this action align with reason? Does it strengthen my character? If the answer is yes, then it is good, regardless of whether it earns applause or criticism. By refusing to let others' indifference disturb you, you build a kind of armor, an invisible shield against the volatility of public opinion. That shield allows you to walk through life with calm determination. The greatest gift of accepting indifference is that it kills vanity. Vanity makes us prisoners of praise, and its absence makes us free. When you stop seeking admiration, you work with a different energy, quiet, focused, and steady. You begin to do things because they matter to you, not because they look good in the eyes of others. A Stoic farmer works his field not for applause, but for sustenance. A Stoic soldier defends not for glory, but for duty. Likewise, in your life, your actions stop being performances and start being expressions of character. This transformation is subtle yet profound. Vanity once chained you to the moods of others. Its absence allows you to move with lightness. You no longer need to show the world you are important. You already know your worth. There is also a deep peace in realizing that no one is obsessing over your mistakes. Many of us leave paralyzed by fear of failure, imagining that the world will mock us endlessly if we stumble. But the truth is that most people forget quickly because they are consumed by their own worries. This realization is liberating. It means you are free to experiment, free to fail, and free to learn without the crushing weight of imagined humiliation. The Stoics embraced failure as part of the human journey. They knew that a mistake is not the end, but a step on the path to wisdom. When you accept that no one cares, you give yourself permission to fail boldly and rise quickly. Fear shrinks, courage grows, and progress accelerates. Accepting indifference also redirects your focus inward. Instead of wasting energy chasing external approval, you invest it in cultivating inner virtues like courage and wisdom. The Stoics believed that happiness comes not from what others think of us, but from the harmony between our actions and our principles. When applause ceases to matter, discipline takes its place. You wake each day not to impress, but to improve. This subtle shift transforms your entire life. Success stops being about comparison and starts being about growth. You measure yourself against yesterday, not against others. And in that quiet competition, you find progress, stability, and meaning. The silence of indifference becomes the soil in which your best self takes root. Another powerful change that comes when you realize no one cares is the ability to let go of resentment. Much of our bitterness comes from expecting others to notice our struggles, sacrifices, or efforts, and then feeling hurt when they don't. But if you truly accept that no one is paying as much attention to your life as you think, resentment fades. You stop keeping score. You no longer feel owed recognition, gratitude, or fairness. Instead, you act because it is right, not because it will be noticed. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we should do good, like a vine produces grapes, without expecting thanks. By freeing yourself from the expectation of acknowledgement, you find joy in the act itself. Resentment dies, and in its place grows serenity. Accepting indifference also reshapes your relationship with pain and hardship. When you stop expecting sympathy, you stop waiting for comfort from others, and instead you learn to comfort yourself. This self-reliance builds an inner fortress. The Stoics taught that suffering becomes lighter when carried with strength and purpose. Complaining only deepens wounds, while endurance sharpens character. Once you accept that the world is not watching your pain, you no longer waste energy on pity or performance. You face your struggles directly, deal with them quietly, and rise stronger. This does not mean you isolate yourself from all human connection, but that you refuse to tie your resilience to external validation. You walk through storms with calm dignity, needing no audience for your strength. The Stoic acceptance of indifference also protects you from the poison of envy. When you believe others care deeply about your life, you are tempted to measure yourself against theirs. But when you realize they are too busy with their own battles to pay attention to yours, envy loses its power. You stop comparing and instead focus on your own path. Envy thrives on the illusion of constant competition, but Stoicism dissolves that illusion. Your worth is not diminished by another's success, nor is it heightened by their failure. What matters is the integrity of your own journey. Once you internalize this, envy gives way to admiration, and jealousy turns into motivation. The race is no longer against the world. It is only against who you were yesterday. Another change that arises from accepting indifference is humility. When you realize no one cares as much as you imagine, you stop placing yourself at the center of every story. You recognize that the world does not revolve around your struggles, nor does it pause for your achievements. This humbling truth can sting, but it also grounds you. It makes you kinder, because you see that everyone else is also fighting unseen battles. It makes you patient, because you no longer expect the universe to bend to your needs. And it makes you wiser, because you begin to see your place in the vastness of life. Stoicism teaches that humility is strength, not weakness, because it frees you from illusions and connects you with reality. Once you internalize this perspective, you also gain control over your time. Much of life is wasted in activities designed to impress others. Buying things we don't need, chasing status symbols, or posting highlights to prove our worth. But if no one truly cares, all that effort is wasted energy. Stoicism reminds us that time is the most precious resource, and wasting it on vanity is a form of self-betrayal. When you let go of the need to impress, you reclaim hours, days, even years of your life. That time can then be invested in learning, creating, building, or simply living with peace. Accepting indifference makes you a better steward of your time, and time well spent is the foundation of a meaningful life. Accepting that no one cares also teaches you to value solitude. Many people fear being alone because they secretly crave constant validation. But when you embrace Stoic wisdom, solitude becomes a gift. You learn to enjoy your own company, to think deeply, to reflect, and to grow without needing an audience. Marcus Aurelius wrote much of his meditations in solitude, not to impress others, but to strengthen himself. When you no longer fear the silence of indifference, solitude transforms into a workshop for the soul. It is in these quiet moments that clarity emerges, goals sharpen, and wisdom grows. Instead of loneliness, you find empowerment. Instead of emptiness, you find depth. This shift changes your relationship with yourself forever. Another transformation is the ability to face rejection with resilience. When you expect others to care, rejection feels like betrayal. But when you accept indifference as the natural state, rejection loses its sting. You see it not as an insult, but as reality. The Stoics would remind us that rejection is simply another event outside our control, not a judgment of our worth. If no one cares, then their approval is unnecessary. This perspective turns rejection into redirection. It simply guides you to other opportunities or to deeper self-reliance. Once you stop fearing rejection, you become bolder in your actions. You take chances others avoid. You step into arenas where others hesitate. Ironically, this courage often leads to greater success, because you are no longer paralyzed by fear of what people think. Living with the truth that no one cares also makes gratitude more authentic. Instead of expecting constant recognition or support, you are genuinely moved when someone does show kindness, because you no longer assume that the world owes you attention. Every act of generosity shines brighter. Stoicism encourages gratitude as a daily practice, not for grand gestures, but for small moments of goodness. A kind word, a helping hand, or a smile becomes precious when you expect nothing. Gratitude deepens your joy and makes life richer, even in its simplicity. Accepting indifference allows you to stop demanding and start appreciating. In this way, your relationships grow stronger, not because you need them, but because you value them. When you internalize this philosophy, discipline becomes your guiding force. If no one cares, then there is no audience to hold you accountable. You must hold yourself accountable. This is the essence of Stoicism, living in alignment with your principles, even when no one is watching. Discipline becomes not a burden, but a form of freedom, because it liberates you from laziness, distraction, and dependence. Whether it's waking early, practicing your craft, or training your body, you do it because it is right, not because others will applaud. This self-governance builds unshakable character. You stop living for the eyes of others and start living for the integrity of your soul. That is when life becomes truly yours. In the end, when you accept that no one cares, everything indeed changes. You stop chasing validation and start chasing virtue. You stop fearing judgment and start embracing authenticity. You stop expecting rescue and start building resilience. This perspective is not cold or cynical. It is profoundly liberating. It allows you to walk through life with lightness, with courage, and with peace. The Stoics knew that freedom is not found in applause, but in self-mastery. When you free yourself from the chains of imagined judgment, you become unstoppable. You no longer live as a prisoner of opinion, but as a master of your own soul. And in that mastery lies the greatest gift. Stoicism offers a life of meaning, stability, and true inner freedom.